How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another YouTube video. My name is Trey Cockrum, and I've built 3 different 7-figure businesses in the 5 years or so that I've run online businesses. And in today's video, I'm just going to be completely honest about, a harsh reality when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And that's that, especially in this industry, in the information industry, the coaching industry, whatever you want to call it, one of the chief problems is staying relevant over time. And what happens is people who are new to the space, they come in, and because they're a new face, there's that uniqueness, that newness, because their face is new, and then they just fall off and drop off. And because they got used to the initial run up, when the fall off comes, they can't survive it. Okay, and I want to talk about how I've managed to continue to survive in business for now about 5 years. And some years are amazing and other years aren't quite as good. I'd say last year was, I'd say, pretty challenging. There was a lot of stuff that I did wrong coming into the year. I didn't plan the year very well at all. And a lot of that just has to do with a lot of personal change that I was experiencing. My wife and I had our new kid, and I kind of just I wasn't very calculated in the business, But what I want to talk about is actually this idea of face fatigue. It's this idea that when you're a fresh coach in the industry, when you're a new face, it's easy to do really, really well because nobody has formed an opinion of you yet. You know what I mean? Nobody has this perception of who you are. But then as time goes along, if you can't stay ahead of that curve, then it gets much, much harder to yield the fruit that you were yielding before. You know what I mean? And I feel this even in my business. 3 or 4 years ago when I was making YouTube content, it was way easier to get clients. Just being candid, way easier. Now, I've got I still do very, very well in both of my businesses, but I've had to adjust a lot and how to keep my message up to date. Okay, so I just want to talk about 2 things that you can do to stay ahead of this cycle, because quite frankly, I just think that most people aren't going to stay ahead of the cycle, and because of that, they're going to have a run up and then they're going to fall off. And I see this over and over and over again, and I see it in good friends of mine. I see it in people who have launched adjacent business off of my business. I've seen it in competitors. I've seen it in tons of different businesses that I've even consulted, and long-term clients. One of my clients, for example, he's going to have his first 8-figure year this year, and at least he's pacing it right now. But that's come after 4 years of, the first year was crazy easy, and he did 300, 400 grand a month that first year, like it was nothing. And then he fell kind of down to 60 to 80 grand a month, kind of saying the same stuff. And then we had to kind of reinvent his message. So let's talk about this. So the first thing is, it's kind of an inner game thing. It's kind of a mental thing, and it's you can't get a big head. You can't get this idea that you've figured it out. You will never figure it out. You're always going to be chasing the newest iteration of your business. That's just what you signed up for. It's never done. Okay, so you kind of have to stop chasing this idea of completion, that you've done it and you can just kind of run the business, and it just is passive income is a lie. It just is. There is no such thing. There's only such thing as active income, unless you're living off of 3 to 4% of a stock portfolio, and you're doing the fat fire thing, if you're familiar with that, where basically the whole idea is sell a company, put it into the S&P 500 and live off of 3% of your portfolio. That's basically the only that I can think of, that's the only passive income. So you have to get that idea out of your head. You have to get the idea out of your head that you can just kind of say the same things over and over and over again and stay relevant. What you have to do is latch on to trends and latch on to things that are relevant, and then pull from those relevant things into your business, right? And I kind of do this, but I honestly could even do it better. The way that I present myself online, it's been pretty much the same year to year, but the thing that changes is, for example, I'm well aware that if I grow another coaching business, that it gives me more authority. Well aware of that. And so that's why I went ahead and did it, And since I've done that, signing clients for my main business has gotten a lot easier because I have the authority. We just crossed, 50 members in a 4,800. Well, we're selling at 4,800 now. We didn't start off at 4,800. So we've grossed about 250K, 220K, something like that with the other business. And that's at about a 40% take home for myself. So, and I launched that at the end of last year. You know, I don't have to do any course material. I just literally just run the ads, and I've just built the funnel, and I help my sales team, and you know, it just runs. And so honestly, you guys, I just think that like I'm able to think in multiple dimensions, and most people just think in one dimension. You know, they just think in like, if I make enough content, I'll get clients. Or if I just am honest enough and authentic enough, I'll get clients. Or if I'm just, bold enough and controversial enough, I'll get clients. And none of that's necessarily very true. You really have to stay ahead of the face fatigue curve. And the way that you do that is, the nature of this business is you have to always be pulling in new audience. There's just no real way around that. You have to be pulling in new audience, okay? You can retain your current audience and retain the LTV of your current audience, but they're going to mature and grow out of needing your message at some point, okay? So there's kind of that balance between having LTV of your current, audience and the people that follow you and do business with you, and there's pulling in new people. But what a lot of people do is they either focus on just retaining their current, that's a big trend in the space right now, like increasing LTV, monthly recurring revenue, keeping clients around for a long time, that sort of thing. Big trend, because people don't know how to get new audience and nurture those relationships. Or it's just grow the audience, and they just do one-off packages. So you kind of have to have a balance. You can't just do one or the other. So the first point is really this idea that like you can't fall into stagnation with this stuff. You can't allow yourself to fall into, oh, well, I've already said that. I've been saying that for 2-3 years. Like, yeah, you got to keep saying it. And you got to reinvent your message, and you have to be willing to go back to the drawing board and figure out, your content is a product that people consume with their attention. Okay? Just like how people have low ticket products that then lead into higher ticket products, right? And people ascend like a ladder of products. Your content is a product that people consume. And if the product doesn't solve a relevant problem or latch onto a relevant trend, then they're not going to consume it, and they're not going to deepen their relationship with your company or your organization or you as a business owner. And so if you're not willing to innovate in what you say and how you present it, then you're going to fall behind that curve. And so how you kind of know that you're starting to fall behind, and quite frankly, this led to like one of my first like major fall offs, was I just was saying the same stuff that worked back in 2020, 2021. And I wasn't staying up to date with new trends and new stuff. And so I just thought that I could keep saying that stuff and it would just keep working, and it just didn't. Like, it was a completely new environment, and a lot of that just had to do with I'd found something that really, really worked. You know what I mean? Like, quite frankly, I'll be totally honest with you, and this might sound super arrogant, but so many people have followed suit with the stuff that I was doing back in 2021, okay? Like, now today in 2025, a lot of people have caught on to it, and I won't mention any names, but I remember these big guys who are in the content sphere now who are positioning themselves certain ways, and like a lot of it comes back to the advice that I gave them, back at the time, and so it's just, it is what it is, I don't expect any credit for that, because at the end of the day, ideas are a free market. There's a free marketplace of ideas, so I have no problem with it, genuinely, but I do want people to understand, like, back in 2020, 2021, I was one of the first guys doing, YouTube to a consulting offer and really pushing that and getting it to like multi-six-figure months, and really scaling that way out. I had like a 90% profit margin, and I was doing 100 to 200, sometimes even 250 a month, just on the YouTube channel. And now that's a very common thing. A lot of people are pushing that and encouraging people to push their message and everything, and that's great. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think this industry really, really needs that. But one thing you have to account for is face fatigue. So how do you stay ahead of face fatigue? Well, you have to do new things. I'm not talking stunts. I'm not talking like grand events and stuff. Like, it has to be real new stuff, like real stuff. For example, even like you look at Dave Ramsey's organization, and he's a great example of this, by the way. And I really pay very close attention to Dave Ramsey, because name another name that's been for decades running a multi-8, sometimes 9-figure organization. You just can't. In the information space, you just can't. So first of all, he's latched onto a timeless problem, okay, which is like personal finance. That's a timeless problem, okay? Second of all, he reinvents every couple years. You'll notice he comes out with a new trend or new way of thinking about personal finance, or he comes out with a new face even. Like, they've got this face in the organization. Their name is John Deloney. And you may know this or you may not. My wife and I love John Deloney, by the way. We've read his books, we love his podcast, all that stuff. Like, we love John Deloney. He's awesome. And but he's like a new face. A lot of people don't even realize that John Deloney is a Ramsey organization, growth agent. You know what I mean? Because people can get tired of Dave Ramsey, so he comes up with new personalities to present the Ramsey organization, because he knows that the Dave Ramsey face has a fatigue component, and he even gets like flack online. He notices that, like, he gets flack. People don't always like his advice, but so he stays ahead of that with new faces. You don't have to stay ahead of it with new faces necessarily, because that's like a huge thing to do. It can even just be like new strategies, new mechanisms, or new things that you've figured out, new breakthroughs. Like, content only works if you are actively in the real world doing what you teach in your content and actually applying the ideas. If you're not actively applying the ideas and coming back to your content with new things to say, then eventually your message is going to go dry. Because by nature of being up against the real world, you're figuring out new things you can bring back to your content. So, for example, back in 2022, 2023, actually like 2023, 2024, I spent about $800,000, maybe $1 million actually on ads for my business. And I learned so much in that time. And so it's given me so much fuel to talk about in my content. I brought back, 2.3, 2.5 million, maybe something like that, just giving me so much fuel to talk about in my content. So many video ideas and things that I could discuss from real experience, and not just like, talking head, word fodder. A lot of people back in 2016, you could maybe do really well on YouTube by just talking head, word spaghetti, whatever, but now you really have to be actively practicing it. Okay, so tip 1, stay ahead of the curve by actively practicing what you do or continually reinventing your message. You can't do the same thing over and over again for forever. Or otherwise you'll just kind of go inside, like you're just totally up to the wind of the market. And you may trend in and trend out, and market opinion may fluctuate and change about your brand or your business, which has happened for me. Like I've gone in and out of style like 3 times now, it feels like, and it's like, whatever, dude. I've come to anticipate it, but moving forward, I'm trying to stay more ahead of it, so it's not like I just kind of fall in and out of style. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing you really got to think about. Okay, the second thing that keeps you ahead of this element of face fatigue, okay, and keeps you ahead of the fall off is just consistency. So if you're not, even when you're not reaping rewards from your content, even when you're not reaping rewards from your message that you're putting out, you still have to put it out, okay? Just because you're not getting immediate rewards from it doesn't mean you stop. That's the worst thing that you can do. I was just on a podcast with a really good friend of mine, Paul Daly. And some of you may know him, some of you may not. He was Iman Gaji's CEO, basically, for his organization for a long time. And on good terms, they decided to part ways, basically. And I was on his podcast, and we were talking about this idea of like how one blunder is fine. One mistake is fine. But it's when you make a mistake after that mistake that you compound it. So for example, like in chess, there's this idea like making one bad move, like that's totally fine. You're gonna make many bad moves throughout a game. But it's when you make one bad move and then following that bad move, you make another bad move, okay? And a very classic example of this in our industry is things aren't going that well, so you kind of start to like just shut up and fade in, and you start to overthink, you get in your head and everything. No, you don't do that. This is a game of resilience and stamina at the end of the day, more than it's anything else, okay? You're gonna have ups and downs. And if you don't have the stamina to see through the hard seasons where you're not seeing the most reward, but you're still putting your message out, that's how you win the long game, okay? Every business is a long game. Jeff Bezos says his philosophy, if you look into this, he's got some interviews where he says this, and I love this perspective. It's like all he's trying to do is delay the death of Amazon by as long as he can. And as a byproduct, you end up growing something quite a bit, because the more it's grown, the harder it's going to be for it to die. So instead of thinking about growing your business, think about delaying the death of it. And what can you do to delay the death of your business? Well, it would be most likely sticking to the things that work timelessly across all aspects. And this is why I decided, because I really want to be able to kind of be a jack of all trades in my own business, right? And be able to weather any storm. That's why I decided for a year and a half to really focus on ads. That's why I didn't make a lot of content for a very long time. I was very, very just kept to myself, and I was just doing ads. A lot of people saw my ads. A lot of people became clients and ended up in my like sphere from my ads, which is great. I had ads that said, you don't need to use ClickFunnels, use this instead. Like, you don't need to use complex funnels. I had ads that said like high ticket sales is dead. Like I played with all kinds of stuff. brought in a ton of clients. And then I realized, like, actually, you know, something, and this is a whole other video that I probably need to make another time. If you're going to run ads, you need to build a business around ads. You know, I had an organic business that I then, like, tacked ads onto. Didn't quite work. You really need to kind of build your business around the traffic channel, and that's why, you know, I now have our other offers and stuff. But anyway, that's kind of how you stay ahead of the fall off. Use those two things. You know, and I see this happen to a lot of people that are very, very talented coaches. They're very, very good at what they do. Their results for their clients are just astounding. But they just can't stay ahead of this stuff, and it's because a couple things. They have a big run up, and then they think it's going to stick around, and it never does. Okay, so you have to understand it just doesn't stick around. Okay, and then they're not conservative with cash during that time. And then they don't get consistent because they got used to a certain amount of reward for their input that, you know, they're putting 1 unit of energy in, getting 10 units out, and it kind of goes from 1 to 10 to like 1 to 4 or 5, maybe even 1 to like 3. And so the units of energy that they put into the system don't yield the same output, so they start to think that they're doing something wrong, and then they just like stop, you know? That's so stupid. It's so dangerous. And I'm speaking again from experience here and from having observed this many, many times over. Okay, so when you have your initial run up, hold the run up. Keep it going. Like, do not stop. But know and anticipate that at some point, what you were doing isn't going to have the same yield. But don't stop. Okay? You have to keep going. And so my advice to somebody who's in that season right now is, like, keep 60, 70% of your focus on what worked at the time. Don't stop it. But 30 to 40% of your focus should be inventing a new way of doing it. Thinking about a new message. Thinking about a new angle that can continue to drive, you know, business. So guys, I mean, this is just from raw experience. You know, this is from having been in this industry for a while now and seeing a lot of people come and go. And it's just a brutal reality of like what it means to be like an information influencer, you know, a coach, a consultant, selling a course, selling a product like that is you know, there are run-ups and there are fall-offs, and just like with any other industry, you know. And so the way that you stay ahead of it is those two things. Never be afraid to reinvent your messaging. Never, ever, ever be afraid to reinvent your messaging, even if it goes against the principles of your old messaging. You know, you really have to, in your own head, be like reinventing your own concepts. It's a very intellectually creative game. And make sure that your concepts stay relevant for the industry you're serving. Okay? And the second thing, you know, is don't stop even when things get hard. So reinvent your message. You know, do the thing you teach. And continually practice it in the real world so you have new, profound revelations to bring to your market. And then don't stop, even if things get hard, okay? Hopefully this has been a valuable video for you. Thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.